My friends, the deficit is up. After all this, after years of telling us that only if Joe Biden and subsequently Kamala Harris are voted down and Donald Trump is made president and given the keys to the economy and he can do his tariffs and he can do his growth and he can do all of it, we are going to see the deficit go down. We're finally going to get back to a balanced budget thanks to fiscal conservatism and blah. And the deficit is up. After all of this, the deficit is up. Trump promised that his tariffs would make the country rich. They would supercharge growth. They would bring revenue from other countries. The tariffs are paid by American companies, but Trump said it would bring revenue from other countries. It would close the deficit. We have the damn numbers. The federal budget deficit in July jumped 20% compared to last year when Joe Biden was president. That is despite the U.S. collecting record tariffs from American companies, which sounds very impressive when you hear it. Oh, we collected $21 billion from American companies, by the way. But the spending is outpacing revenue by a lot. In fact, by a growing amount. Tariffs are a tax on imports. We've explained this before. It's a simple concept. The tax is paid by the American business. They pass it down to the American consumer by charging more. It's not China paying us. It's me paying. It's you paying. It's the companies importing the goods that are paying. So the money does go into the treasury, but it doesn't change the fact that the government's expenses are growing faster than its income. And there are a number of reasons why. Number one, interest payments on the national debt are ballooning. Number two, we have a bunch of other spending that even though Trump said he was going to bring spending down, he's spending more on defense, spending more on health programs. And so you've got this record tariff revenue, but the costs are just swamping extra income. And even the tariff revenue is being collected from American companies. It's like putting water into a bucket while drilling holes into the bottom of the bucket. That's sort of metaphorically what is being done here. And Trump's entire sales pitch was the tariffs aren't just going to raise money, they're going to generate growth because they're going to bring back industry and they're going to do all these things. So we're going to get more tax revenue and the deficit will go down. The problem is blanket tariffs as executed by this administration slow the economy down. They don't speed it up. Basic stuff. I learned this in I learned this in my freshman. I learned this in AP Econ, senior year of high school, right? 65 years ago now. Companies face higher costs, so consumers pay more, so imports drop, so any extra revenue from the collection of tariffs is undercut by higher prices and slower growth. The Congressional Budget Office has already looked at this. They said this is a tariff plan that over 10 years is going to cut deficits, but at the cost of shrinking the economy, of raising inflation, of lowering purchasing power. So if you do what's called dynamic scoring means you analyze the effect of the change in behavior thanks to your policy. So for example, this is I think the simplest example. It's very easy. And by the way, this is not me advocating for or against anything, but you sometimes hear, if you raise the top tax rate on the rich from 37 to 45%, here's how much extra you generate in revenue. In order to do that accurately, you also have to say, here is how we expect the behavior of that group to change in response to the tax increase. And if that includes some individuals will restructure businesses to avoid income tax, some individuals might work less, some individuals might move to a different country, whatever. You have to account for that. And so you can't just say, we're going to collect tariffs and the deficit will go down by the amount of the tariffs, because it doesn't account for economic activity will slow down because of higher prices. They didn't account for that. And that's what they are now dealing with. Now, there's one other issue I want to mention that economists are pointing out, which is that Trump is changing tariff rates constantly. And so that at its core, aside from dynamically analyzing the effect of any economic policy, if you're we've got an emergency tariff, but now it's temporarily suspended. And then here's the permanent tariff, but here's the extra tariff. When you do that, you can't even accurately predict what is going to happen. So this is not like a political story. It has a political dynamic to it. But if tariffs are failing to do what Trump promised, which they are because the deficit is up 20% year over year, you're sticking working class Americans with the fallout. Jobs will be more scarce. There will be more inflationary pressure. Interest rates on mortgages may remain high, on car loans, on credit cards. In other words, it's the opposite of enriching the United States. Trump's saying we're getting really wealthy because of the tariff revenue. The numbers say the deficit's going up. Forget about the fact that Trump said in his first term he would completely pay off the national debt with a surplus. That didn't happen, and deficits, of course, went up. We are now seeing the opposite of what he promised happen on prices, on jobs, on manufacturing, and now also on the deficit.